Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now for today's video, we're joined by a special guest, none other than the co-founder and CEO of Awakn Life Sciences, Tennyson. He's going to be answering some questions and giving us some insight into his business. This is a company we've covered extensively on the channel. I'm super excited about them moving into the back half of 2022 and really looking forward to getting into today's presentation. Before we do, please take a second, hit the like button, you guys. It's a huge help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. And let me know in the comment section below what you thought of today's interview, if you're currently holding shares of Awakn, and if you have any outstanding questions for the leadership team. Now with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, we've got a really exciting one for you. We're joined in office by none other than the CEO and co-founder of Awakn Life Sciences, Tennyson. Anthony, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Hey, listen, thanks. It's great to talk to you again and talk to your audience. Brilliant.
Perfect. Well, we've got a number of questions for you. Some of them are actually from our subscribers, so really interesting discussion today. First one, actually, for those of us who maybe missed my initial coverage on Awakn or are not super familiar with your business model, can you tell us a little bit about the company and your personal background at the company?
Absolutely happy to. So maybe I'll start with my personal background first, because that gives a bit of context on the company. So. Sure. Way back when I was my dad's an engineer, he has an engineering practice, and I was meant to take over the engineering practice. I tried engineering in university, it didn't work out. So I left university, I went to New York, attended bar for a year, went to London, attended bar in London for a year. And I got to see, up close and personal, some of the damage that alcohol does to people during that experience. And also one of the things that really resonated with me was you'd be attending bar in London and someone would come in with a £20 note, they'd get a pint, they'd get the change in pound coins, and they go and sit at the slot machine and spend the change in the slot machine. And every pint cost them 20 quid. And they'd stay there all day and do it. And that just didn't strike me as being good. So I went back to college, did lots of stuff, did a degree, did university, but I ended up working in London, family in Dublin. I worked in London, living in a hotel, drinking too much, wasn't good for my head. So I left that stuff. And with a couple of friends, co-founded Awakn Life Sciences, with the aim of delivering better and more effective treatments for addiction. Okay. I'm Irish. I've seen the damage that alcohol has done to my friends, to society, and came close enough to myself. And also the financial district in Dublin is cheek by jowl with the most underprivileged part of the country, the North Inner City. So I've seen the damage that heroin has done to those individuals, families, and communities. And it's just not good enough. So what we're doing in Awakn, with that motivation, with that energy and that purpose, it's to provide hope for individuals, families, and communities who are affected by addiction. And we do that by developing therapeutics, so combined therapeutics, to better treat addiction. You can go, what are combined therapeutics? So if you just double click on that, It's drugs and therapies used in combination. So we use psychedelic drugs to make psychotherapy more effective, to increase the probability of people recovering from addiction. It's that simple. And we do that because addiction is one of the biggest unmet medical needs of modern times. You go out with your friends, you go out with your family, you look left and right, and there's either someone there or someone that they know directly who has been affected by addiction, and the treatments are not effective. And again, like to say, that's just not good enough. So what we're doing is we are going to change that for those people, their families, and their communities.
Okay, great. Yeah, appreciate the overview. And we've actually covered a few of these type of companies on the channel. And obviously alcohol addiction, alcohol use disorder is a massive problem. So sticking on that theme, Anthony, alcohol addiction we've seen grow, obviously in light of the pandemic across the world right now. Speak to us a little bit about Awakn's business model in that regard. And what are some of the key differentiators of your company compared to some of these other players?
Happy to do so. So alcohol use disorder affects 400 million people globally, 5% of the planet. Mm-hmm. The best treatments available, there's typically a 75% failure rate for those treatments within the first 12 months post-treatment. So we're looking to change that. So you could view our company as being the third generation or the third evolution of treatments for alcohol addiction.
Okay.
Generation 1 was talk therapy only, AA. Great, admirable, about a 90% failure rate with AA treatments. Next evolution was drugs and therapies used in sequence. So you can take like Vivitrol, they block the uptake agent. Doesn't always work. So we're the next evolution, and we are using drugs and therapies in combination. So we are using drugs to disrupt the brain circuits that house the behaviors that drive the addiction. And during the disruption that those drugs provide, we come in with proprietary psychotherapy to enable people to develop much greater insight in why they became addicted, and then develop much more robust coping mechanisms to prevent them relapsing. We're using ketamine in the near term, because ketamine has some wonderful things that it enables people to gain a different insight in their life. It enables people to disrupt some of those memories that drove the addiction. And it also provides this place called neurogenesis after taking ketamine that enables new neural connections to form. And it's just like, I don't know, remember if you know when you were a teenager, you're much younger than me, but the memories from when you're younger and a teenager are much more important to your personality than the ones are later on in life. And so what we're using is using ketamine to enable memories to be implanted during that neurogenesis. And those are new ways of coping and pushing back against the addiction. So that's the approach that we take. How are we set up as a company to do that? Well, we've got three core functions. We've got an R&D business.
Okay.
We've got a small clinics platform. We got a commercialization business. R&D business, we develop those combined therapeutics to treat addiction. That approach is new for the addiction treatment industry. So what we have is a small clinics platform to enable us to fine-tune the commercial and delivery model for those combined therapeutics, essentially so that we can walk the walk and talk the talk before commercializing those at scale. So R&D, ketamine-assisted therapy for alcohol use disorder, clinics, we're delivering that already today in 3 clinics in the UK and the EU. So we're revenue generating today. And then later on this year and early next year, we're going to commercialize that at scale into the US addiction clinic treatment industry, which is a $40 billion industry that isn't as highly performing as it should be. And we're going to hopefully enable that industry to be more effective by licensing our IP to them.
Okay, great. And I've actually got some additional questions about the revenue streams in a second here for you, but I wanted to double click on the ketamine-assisted therapy. So Anthony, back in January, Awakn announced some really promising phase 2 A and B clinical study results in relation to the ketamine-assisted therapy for AUD, again, alcohol use disorder. Tell us about some of the key points there, and what does that mean for you and the team at Awakn?
Great question. So we have in-licensed, or we've completed a trial for phase 2 AB combined trial for ketamine-assisted therapy for alcohol use disorder. It was a 96-person, N equals 96 trial, so it was reasonably sized. People coming into that trial were sober 2% of the time. So every 2 out of every 100 days they were sober, the rest they weren't. So fairly significant alcohol issues.
Yeah.
Those that went through the proprietary ketamine-assisted therapy arm were sober on average 86% of the time in the 6 months post-treatment. So 2% sobriety to 86% sobriety is groundbreaking. Now we're doing 2 things with the results of that trial.
Okay.
We're delivering that methodology in our clinics today. So we are the only company in the world delivering and commercializing evidence-backed ketamine-assisted psychotherapy anywhere.
Okay.
Second thing we're doing is we're bringing that research forward from phase 2B into phase 3. Focused on the UK, which is a 60 million person territory, we are in partnership with a leading university, University of Exeter, and the National Healthcare System in the UK, which is the second biggest purchaser of healthcare services in the world with a $200 billion a year budget. And we are working to bring that research forward into a phase 3 pivotal trial in the UK. We have also applied for a grant from the Department of Health in the UK for them to pay 2/3 of the cost of that pivotal trial in the UK.
Okay.
And we would hope to announce the results of that grant later on this quarter. And it would mean that we would be one of the only psychedelic companies in phase 3 if we are successful with that grant. And if we are successful with that grant, we would hope to initiate that phase 3 trial in Q3 or Q4 this year. Bearing in mind, the only other company in phase 3 in this sector is MAPS, and they are working with MDMA for PTSD. MDMA is going to be a generic soon enough. And there's Compass, who are moving from phase 2B into phase 3 in due course, and they're working with a synthetic version of psilocybin, but it is essentially a generic. And we will hopefully be in phase 3 with ketamine for alcohol use disorder later this year.
Wow. Okay. That was actually going to be my next question, is when does phase 3 start? But you've already addressed that. And yeah, when you look at the market cap of Awakn compared to some of those other names you just mentioned, Anthony, it really does make a lot of sense from an investment standpoint when you compare the market cap to the progression or where you guys are at in the drug development cycle. Now, the next question, this is the one from the subscriber. So thanks for sharing this. This one's around scaling the clinics. So you mentioned you've got a portfolio of actual physical brick and mortar clinics to do the delivery component here. What are your plans, roadmap, targets, milestones on the clinic front?
Yep, absolutely. So the clinics is great for us. You know, we're not a healthcare play, but we are a biotech. But what we're doing is new. So we need the clinics to test the business model, and we're learning a huge amount by doing that. If we're in basic stuff like scheduling, client experience, all of that stuff that is required to really deliver this industry at scale. So we've got 3 clinics open, one in Oslo in Norway and 2 in the UK. And the roadmap is to open 1 a quarter from Q4 this year onwards. Now, we may be a little bit delayed by the Q4 one because we're having debates with the landlord, but the aim would be to open 1 a quarter from Q4 this year or Q1 next year. We're targeting UK, the Nordics, and Ireland.
Okay.
That is 100 million person, $5 trillion a year GDP territory. So that's the roadmap that we're going with and the prioritization. We will then potentially look at other parts of Europe in due course. But it's worth remembering for your viewers, the UK, the EU, that's 440 million people, which is bigger than the US. And if you bring in other countries in Europe, there's actually 750 million people in Europe. So it's a really, really fertile hunting ground for us to go after and open clinics. And there are relatively few clinic operators doing what we do in Europe. So it's, not to use too much MBA bullshit bingo, but it's blue ocean space rather than red ocean, which some of the stuff in the US is.
Totally. And 2 follow-ups there, Anthony. So 1 clinic per quarter, up to how many? What's your target?
And again, because we're a biotech and not a clinic play, 15 to 20 clinics is where we will stop at. Any more than that, we end up becoming a healthcare business with a biotech bolt-on. We're not. We're a biotech business that's using the clinics to test and validate the business model, but also, though, to generate revenue and free cash flow. So what we're forecasting is each clinic can generate 4 million US or 5 million Canadian top line, and about 25 points of margin. So we'll have a revenue engine in our clinics platform that will generate free cash flow at the business unit level and enable us to reinvest that free cash flow back into the biotech business on an annual, non-dilutive manner.
Yeah, I think that's really important as an investor in these type of companies, and another way you guys have differentiated yourself. I was going to ask about the target revenue per clinic, but you just addressed that, which is great. Are there any other revenue streams or plans for alternate revenue streams, maybe around licensing some of this technology?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, we're not a healthcare play. So there's only going to be so many clinics that we're going to open.
Yeah.
But there is a massive number of people that need to be helped and a significant commercial opportunity beyond just our clinics. So we've got a near-term commercial plan to execute on that, which is we will license all of our IP developed in the R&D business, fine-tuned in the clinic business. We're going to out-license that into the US addiction treatment industry, starting in a beta version in Q4 this year and going live next year. To enable us to do that, we've hired the former head of sales for the Western region of the US for a brand called Vivitrol. I probably mentioned that earlier on in the discussion, but Vivitrol is is a brand that generates $350 million a year for a biotech or pharma company called Alkermes. Kevin Lorenz has joined us. He generated his team, the team that he ran, generated 120 million of Vivitrol's $350 million a year sales.
Wow.
He knows the owner directly or by one degree of separation. He knows the owners of every addiction treatment clinic in the US. He actually launched Vivitrol in the US and brought it from 0 to 100 million revenue. So this is his core competency. So he's in to enable us to beta test our licensing partnerships business in the US, where we will enable addiction treatment clinics to deliver our methodology. Mm-hmm. And we believe we'll enable them to be more effective at a lower price point or more effective at a higher margin than they are currently being. Beta launch that this year, go live Q1 next year. So we're a biotechnology company with a very, very strong R&D engine. And we've got a clinics platform that is generating revenue today in our second financial year. And then we have a scale commercialization play to start next year. So your audience could view us as being a biotech that's de-risked by having multiple near-term revenue streams.
Yep.
Or you could view us as being near-term healthcare revenue streams with a significant biotech upside available.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Yeah, that's awesome context. Next question here for you, Anthony. In early April, so just recently here, Awakn announced some pretty promising results from phase 1 for what's called an NCE. So for people watching, that's a new chemical entity. Development program for treating both substance and behavioral addiction. Can you give us some details around this one as well? Because super exciting, and this was one I actually followed on the channel.
Absolutely happy to. So again, the uniqueness of our business, we have the clinics platform that we're learning so much out of. What we're beginning to learn, what we know is that MDMA is very good for treating addictions as a result of a phase 2A trial that we have in-licensed, delivering 70% efficacy. And because an awful lot of addictions have trauma as a cause, or the actually becoming addicted is a traumatic event. But what we're learning from the clinics business is MDMA-assisted psychotherapy that lasts 6 hours with a 6-hour recovery window, that's going to be expensive to deliver. Right? Yeah. You need different infrastructure, 3 shifts of staff, also very intense on the therapist as well. Mm-hmm. So what we're working to do is to develop a version of MDMA, so an entactogen, MDMA is an entactogen, that will work in 2 hours with a 2-hour recovery window, enabling us and our partners in due course to treat 2 people per day per room, as opposed to 1 person per day per room, significantly improving the commercials and the economics of that as a business proposition. So we have initiated and we completed a hit to lead program where we got the computers running. They identified a whole load of novel molecules, completely different structures that work at a neurobiological level in the same way that MDMA works. Everyone knows MDMA interacts with 3 receptor sites: serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline. Professor David Nutt, who is our chief research officer and is a global authority, has discovered 2 additional receptor sites that MDMA works with. So we are building molecules that work with what we believe to be the 5 known receptor sites that MDMA interacts with. And we are designing it to have a quicker onset and a shorter half-life. So start quicker, end quicker. Mm-hmm. And then we're refining the target product profile, all that sort of stuff. But we've gone through the full computers, chemicals, Petri dishes, lab rats, and we've identified 2 series with drug-like properties, and our science team are now analyzing the data to determine which is the lead and which is the backup. And then we would aim to go into lead optimization, which is the next stage of that program later on this year, and then soon enough, so maybe in 24, to be first time in human with our own molecules and compounds. And the great thing about our business is we would have had a couple of years working with the generics of ketamine and MDMA at that stage, and we will have really refined the therapy side of the combined therapeutics that we're developing in our R&D business. Then we develop our own molecules, and we bring our therapies that we have deep experience with together with our own proprietary molecules into a phase 2 trial to test efficacy. And then we have a very, very compelling combined therapeutics package that we can point at a range of different addictions where the outcomes are currently very poor, that we'll bring forward and commercialize through our distribution platform of clinics and licensing partnerships.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of synergies with how you've set up the company, and it's crazy to hear how much progression is going on in this space. You also threw out the name David Nutt during that answer, so I would definitely encourage viewers to go in and take a look at his profile as well. As you mentioned, Anthony, a very well-established player globally in this space. Now, in closing here, you've touched on a few of the key developments or catalysts for 2022, but I wanted to ask anything specific viewers, investors should keep an eye out in the back half of 22. And if people want more information on your company, what's the best way to go about getting that?
Best place for them to go is your website. And if not your website, our website, AWKNLifeSciences.com, spelled AWAKN Lifesciences.com. What do they got to look for coming down the track? Well, we've got a good number of catalyst events coming down the track.
Yeah.
So we've got hopefully the winning of that grant from the UK state.
Okay.
And then for the phase 3 for ketamine, and moving into phase 3 for ketamine and being one of the only psychedelics companies in phase 3. We got the completion of some early studies that we're doing around behavioral addictions. And we believe we are the only company in the world developing drug-based treatments for behavioral addictions. And then we got progressing the NCE program from lead to lead optimization. And then when you look into the clinics business, we've got execution and earning revenue in the clinics business and announcing that.
Yeah.
And then the licensing partnerships business, you've got the initiation of commercial activity in the US. So we're very, very confident and pleased with what the future holds for Awakn.
Most definitely, a lot coming down the pipeline for sure, and we'll continue to provide updates on the channel for people interested in Awakn and some of the progression going on here. Anthony, thanks so much. That was awesome to have you on the channel. We really appreciate your time. If you're still watching at this point, you guys, feel free to hit the like button. It really does help myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. And please leave a comment in the video description or video comment section below, and we can try and get that answered next time we meet with Awakn or Anthony in office here. So thanks so much. Appreciate your time and have a great rest of your day.